Welcome back to Recap Express. Today we'll be diving into a mystery horror film from 2016 titled Split. A young Casey is shown to us at the opening of the film, celebrating Claire's birthday while seated in a restaurant. Claire tells her father that it disturbed her that she had to invite Casey after the party. When Casey gets to the restaurant, she phones her guardians to come get her. There was nobody else she could take home. Indifferent to his daughter's sentiment, Claire's father waits to see if Casey can travel home with her guardians. Regretfully, Casey's guardian experienced an automobile breakdown. Claire has made the decision to ride the bus, but her father is adamant that he would drive her home. Marcia gets in the car with Claire and Casey. As the two girls chatter their way to the back seat, Casey takes a seat next to the driver's seat. When an unidentified person approaches Claire's father, he stops for the car's compartment and unloads packs of food and gifts. With a heavy thud, the compartment closes, and another man gets into the driver's seat. Casey gives the man a concerned look. It informs him he got into the wrong car, says Claire. The man puts on a face mask, sprays something on Claire and Marcia, and Casey freezes. It appears that both girls have lost consciousness. When Casey tries to extricate herself, the attacker quickly knocks her unconscious. Casey finds herself in a room with a few light beams, redeeming her awareness. Claire is giving Marcia a hug. The room door opened before they could even begin a rational conversation. A spectacle-wearing man walks in and takes Marcia with him. He eventually brings back the sobbing Marcia and closes the door with an irate growl. Marcia informs Claire and Casey that she urinates on herself despite Dennis's desire for her to dance for him. A frightened Casey shakes and storms off to a far-off childhood memory as Claire reassures the other two that everything will be well. The action then returns to Casey's early years. In a cafe, Casey's Uncle John was telling a little Casey a story about hunting. That day, she was with her father, and she believed nothing could go wrong. Meanwhile, word of the kidnapping of the three kids spreads throughout a psychotherapy clinic. An elderly psychotherapist named Karen notices that a client named Barry schedules a visit with her on her computer. Claire is telling Marcia and Casey to fight back if their captor tries to seize one of them again when they are alone. Casey rejects Claire's suggestion for resolving the issue because she is exercising careful and logical thought. Claire believes that time is of the essence and that the three need to move painfully in Dennis' direction. Given their circumstances, it appears that Claire believes Casey was uncooperative and obstinate once more. They still don't know the specifics, so Casey reassures them that she would assist them once she has a clear idea of how to proceed. In the middle of the woods, the little Casey was sleeping in a tent. With a rifle in his hand, her father was at her side instructing her on how to find her target. A man knocks respectfully in Dr. Karen's clinic, wearing a loose coat and a bonnet. He was the kidnapper. Barry tells her he was inspired by fashion. Physician Karen turns the vibrant pages of his drawings. Asking probing questions, she tries to get a feel for him and learn more about the man behind his words. She lies to him about his location of employment, but he stops her by seeming to be concerned. When he places Karen's belongings in the right places and discards his sketches irresponsibly, Barry begins to notice some indications of a personality change. He stays away from the clinic run by Dr. Karen. The girls notice that a woman was staying with their kidnapper via the tiny opening in the door. The girl thought Dennis was the name of their kidnapper, but the woman was speaking to him. The woman approaches the door and opens it. That person kidnapped them. The youngsters, perplexed as to why he was wearing a lady's disguise, hesitantly take a step back. Dennis listens well to the lady, so she reassures them that there is nothing to be concerned about. She closes the door after asserting that Dennis won't harm or attack them. Dr. Karen discusses the bits of data supporting dissociative identity disorder with a colleague physician she meets with in town. Although Karen sees her patients differently from the colleague doctor, Karen feels that they are not abnormal. Marcia and Claire discover that Dennis is spending the entire chat with a fictional persona in their windowless room. A man carrying a pail enters their restroom as they are talking. Kevin was reverting to his Dennis persona. He demands that they come closer and clean the toilet after going on about how filthy it was. He tells the girls that, as he promised Patricia, he will not touch any of them going forward. But he says it's going to be a holy feast, leaving them to wonder who will eat the three of them. Later on in the evening, Claire and Marcia annoy Casey by pointing to the door. The kidnapper looks to be sitting contentedly in the open door. It was Dennis's playful, innocent 9-year-old alter ego, Hedwig. He keeps alerting them to the fact that someone is moving. They were aware by now that their kidnapper wasn't acting out his personas. Observing his humility, the girls probe him for information. He makes friends with Casey, who begs him to approach so she can gently whisper in his ear. When Casey tries to put Hedwig back in the position she was in, the playful identity thinks she was lying straight. He naively admits that Dennis had been planning the kidnapping for a long time and had been following Marcia and Claire for days. Casey thinks Patricia and Dennis were telling him lies in order to send Hedwig to the hallowed feast in place of him. She deftly persuades him that the females in the room are Hedwig's nannies and that they are ready to shield him from Patricia and Dennis. However, in order for them to save him as well, he must show them the way out right away. Hedwig returns his stride towards the door and shuts it. Casey can see Hedwig struggling to open the second door as she peeps between the gaps. The females begin banging on the plasterboard throughout the whole space. Claire uses her heels to rip a hole in the ceiling where there is a weak place. When Hedwig enters the room again, he demands to see the girls. As the two press the door against the enraged Hedwig, Claire removes a section of the steel grid from the ceiling. With all his strength, Hedwig transforms into Dennis and opens the door. As she climbs to the top and makes her way across the ceiling, Dennis yells and runs after Claire. She cautiously hides in a locker, but Dennis discovers her and orders her to exit the vault. He leads her to a different room, which he carefully locks, and instructs her to take off her sweaters. After fixing the ceiling in Marcia and Casey's room, he goes back to tell them that Claire will be kept apart from them. He also insists that they take off their sweaters and skirts. Dr. Karen is participating in a video conference with other psychotherapists in the meantime. She talks about the clinical data from her dissociative identity disorder patients, as well as the potential for discovering every identity the brain is capable of holding. Barry visits her after the conference, but it doesn't take her long to realize that he is someone else entirely. Barry says no when Dr. Karen offers to speak with his other identities. She speculates that Dennis may have stolen Barry's clothes. Barry restates that neither Patricia nor Dennis are assuming control since they are unstable and are not permitted to display their identities in public. Karen is challenging Barry, and he's starting to become frustrated. Following the session, Dr. Karen looks through the CCTV footage and believes that Patricia or Dennis was actually assuming Barry's identity. Marcia realizes that while they are still alive, they must find a way out. As she speaks, Casey dreams that she is out hunting with her father and Uncle John when she is younger. In the forest, his father had just killed a deer. In addition to grooming Casey and Marcia, Patricia feeds her. Unlike the lonely Claire, they are good girls, so she invites them to a hearty lunch in the kitchen. Patricia is preparing the food when Marcia takes the audacity to slam Patricia with a stool. Dennis assumes control and orders Casey to lock herself in the room, whereupon he discovers a quivering Marcia. He punishes her by locking her in a different room. Casey is forewarned by Dennis that the beast is coming to eat them. Little Casey was peering into the woods on another hunting trip, while her father was dozing off. A gun is held in front of the helpless youngster by her Uncle John. Hedwig gives Casey a surprise embrace as she awakens. Hedwig discloses that Patricia and Barry choose who remains in the light, but that Hedwig is not like Patricia. Furthermore, he claims that the only people who think the beast exists are Patricia and Dennis. He's asked by Casey if he's ever seen the beast. Hedwig asks to kiss her in order to divert her attention. She gives him an uneasy permission. She tells him that he was a terrific kisser and begs Hedwig to slink her up to his room so they can dance and enjoy some music. Hedwig, though, departs for Barry's visit with Dr. Karen. Dr. Karen implies that Dennis's beliefs are ludicrous during the session, confirming what Barry had said in the earlier sessions. To gain Dennis's trust, she pays him compliments. She reveals that all the other personas will eventually take over the light at once if Dennis doesn't open up. Dennis reveals that all 22 distinct identities made fun of him and Patricia. He was purposefully altering his behavior to shield the frail Kevin. She tells him that she thinks the beast's story is just Patricia and Dennis's fiction and challenges him to share it. Hedwig shows Casey to his room after the session, and she reluctantly goes in. Hedwig dances crazily to the stereo's loud, booming sounds. After dancing, he accuses Casey of escaping through his scribbled window, pointing to it. Dennis gives a walkie-talkie to Casey through Hedwig. Hedwig reclaims the walkie-talkie after Casey calls in and informs the man answering the recipient of the situation. Casey is led to her room by him. Dennis shows up donning his go-to formal attire and spectacles. He clarifies that at the end of the night, the beast will be happy. Little Casey was wandering through the forest without his father when Casey's Uncle John, who was concealed behind a large boulder, called him. Casey was asked to strip while he was still in his birth suit, instructing her that they were acting out animal roles while naked. When he was finished, Casey stood with a gun in his hand just above his hiding place. John swiftly retrieved it from her for protection as Casey loaded it and pointed it at him. Dr. Karen pays Dennis a visit in the middle of the night at his home. Dennis leads her into Barry's room where he begins to tell her the well-known story of Kevin's traumatic upbringing. Dennis helped Kevin in order to appease his mother by being organized. Dr. Karen calms him down by persuading him that Kevin can be saved without the help of the 23 distinct personalities. Dennis shows her the likeness of the beast, which turns her off. Dennis is reluctant to go into further detail when Dr. Karen brings up the beast that is feasting on the unclean young women. Dr. Karen interrupts to have a proper session. Heading towards the loo, she looks around the rooms on the other side of the corridor. Claire is in one of his chambers when she sees her, but he uses a poisonous spray to chase her away. Casey attempts to open the door from the inside as the other two buy themselves some time to escape. Dennis visits a mall to purchase a floral arrangement. On his way home, Casey enters a computer-equipped area where she finds all 23 of the Distinct Identities films. Dennis enters an abandoned rail car and assumes the identity of his 24th persona. He becomes bigger and thicker than the other 23 personalities, and he walks more erratically. Fearsome as the beast, he dashes home. After waking up, Karen notes things at one of his tables. With her vision impaired, she grabs a bread knife and stabs him in the back, but the blade breaks apart. The doctor cries as the beast crushes him to death. Following his viewing of the tapes, Casey discovers where the keys are and stealthily stalks the hallways in an attempt to find Marcia and Claire. In one of the rooms, Marcia has already been soaked with blood. In one of the rooms, Claire was still alive, but the beast had dragged her and eaten her organs. When Casey discovers a note from Karen, he becomes paralyzed with fear as the beast begins to crawl over the wall. She starts whispering his name over and over, louder each time she feels him waning. The original identity, Kevin, assumes control of the body as he recalls being whipped by his cruel mother. Kevin is unaware of the actions taken by the other personalities. Kevin wants Casey to shoot him in the cabinet with a gun, but he pauses her momentarily. Casey sees how the kind Kevin suddenly assumes all the important personas. Casey looks for the gun while Hedwig is at the light. When Casey understands he would soon change into the beast, she darts through the rooms while looking for bullets. The beast has already transformed, and it grabbed Casey and tore her jumper apart before she could load all the shells. After getting the rifle off the ground, she gets back up to lock the cage. Casey hobbles over to the opposite corner of the jail. Casey was calmly seated as her Uncle John stepped out of the shadows. It was the funeral for her father. John assured her that he would look after her well. Coming full round to the present, Casey takes aim at the beast that is charging through the dim lane. She shoots at the beast in the same manner that she was trained to hunt. Casey quickly learns that the beast is unbeatable despite having just 2 bullets left in her gun. With his bare hands, the beast bends the bars, revealing her body's scars. The beast retreats to give her privacy. A man later finds Casey's form in the cage when he visits the basement. He helps her get out of the main enclosure of the zoo. The policemen search Kevin's belongings in the basement while a medical officer administers to Casey. Kevin enters an unoccupied room where all the important identities suddenly take up the light. Examining Kevin's body in light of the beast's unbeatable record, the 3 murder cases of Kevin Crumb in the zoo's basement are revealed by a news anchor. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this movie recap. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.